Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're uncovering the incredible story of the Lee family, the Trillionaire dynasty that shaped Singapore into one of the richest nations on Earth. From controlling trillion-dollar sovereign wealth funds to living lives of quiet but immense power, their influence is unlike anything you've ever seen. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the hidden worlds of the world's wealthiest and most powerful families. Singapore may be one of the smallest countries in the world, but it is also one of the richest. The tiny island nation, with its gleaming skyscrapers, world-class infrastructure, and booming financial markets, has become a global hub for wealth, business, and luxury. But behind the success story of Singapore lies one family that has shaped its destiny for decades, the Lee family. This is not just a political dynasty, but a family whose influence is so vast that many call them the trillionaire rulers of Singapore. Their control, power, and wealth go far beyond politics. They have guided the nation from a struggling colony to one of the richest places on Earth. And while they may not flaunt gold-plated palaces or mega yachts like Middle Eastern royals, their wealth is measured in something even more powerful: the ownership of an entire country's future. Let's go deep inside the trillionaire life of the Lee family, how they built their legacy, how they control one of the richest nations on Earth, and what their hidden world looks like behind the public image. The story begins with Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of modern Singapore. When he took power in 1959, Singapore was far from the global powerhouse we know today. It was a struggling trading post, riddled with poverty, corruption, and uncertainty. Lee Kuan Yew changed everything. Through strict governance, visionary planning, and sometimes ruthless policies, he transformed Singapore into one of the richest and most stable nations in the world. He built the foundation for economic growth, attracted global investors, and positioned Singapore as a hub for finance, shipping, and technology. By the time he passed away in 2015, Singapore was no longer just a country. It was a global success story. And at the center of it all was the Lee family. Here's where the trillionaire label comes in. The Lee family is not wealthy in the same way as oil-rich royals or tech billionaires. Their wealth is tied to Singapore's government-linked companies, sovereign wealth funds, and the incredible assets the country owns. Singapore's sovereign wealth funds, Temasek Holdings and GIC, Government of Singapore Investment Corporation, control assets worth over $1.5 trillion combined. These funds invest in everything from real estate and technology companies to banks and global energy firms. While these funds are technically owned by the state, the Lee family's dominance in politics has meant that they effectively control this immense fortune. In other words, their net worth is tied to the prosperity of the entire country, making them trillionaires in influence and access. Lee Hsien, the billionaire prime minister. After Lee Kuan Yew, his son Lee Hsien stepped into the role of prime minister. Educated at Cambridge and Harvard, Lee Hsien has ruled Singapore since 2004, carrying forward his father's legacy of strict governance and economic growth. As prime minister, he has had enormous control over Singapore's financial policies, trade deals, and global investments. His official salary is already shocking, over $1.6 million per year, making him the highest-paid world leader by far. But beyond his salary, his influence is tied to Singapore's sovereign wealth. Lee Hsien is essentially the steward of trillions in national assets. And while it is not directly called personal wealth, the reach, control, and decision-making power he has surpasses that of many billionaires. While the Lees live in relative modesty compared to Middle Eastern royalty, make no mistake, their lifestyle is still one of immense privilege. The family has access to exclusive state residences, high-level security, and private retreats far from the public eye. Their influence allows them to enjoy luxury in discreet, understated ways. Unlike royals who flaunt gold and diamonds, the Lees enjoy power that is quieter but far more enduring: the power to shape laws, economies, and the future of millions of people. Their private lives are guarded fiercely. You won't often see them on yachts or in tabloids. Instead, their wealth is reflected in influence, a type of privilege far more valuable than material display. The country owns stakes in airlines, shipping companies, real estate giants, banks, and tech firms. Temasek Holdings alone has investments in companies like Singapore Airlines, DBS Bank, Standard Chartered, Alibaba, and BlackRock. This means that while most billionaires own personal companies, the Lee family is tied to ownership stakes in some of the most important companies in the world. Their influence is not just in Singapore, but across global markets. Think about it. A single family overseeing a nation that owns pieces of companies spanning the globe. That's not billionaire wealth. That's trillionaire control. Unlike other wealthy families who flaunt mega mansions, the Lees live in understated but incredibly secure residences. Lee Kuan Yew himself lived in a modest house at 38 Oxley Road, but it was filled with history and political significance. Today, the family has access to prime real estate in Singapore, a city where property prices are among the most expensive in the world. In addition, they travel the globe with state-level privileges. Private jets, diplomatic security, and access to world leaders are a standard part of their lives. Every member of the Lee family has received world-class education, often at the most elite universities in the world. Cambridge, Harvard, Oxford. These names are common on their resumes. This ensures that each generation of the Lee dynasty is not just wealthy, but also highly connected. Their networks include presidents, CEOs, and royalty from across the globe. This combination of wealth, power, and intellect is what makes them uniquely dominant. Over the years, there have been internal disputes over inheritance, political succession, and family rivalries. The most famous was the feud between Lee Hsien and his siblings after their father's death, particularly concerning the family home at 38 Oxley Road. But even with these disputes, the Lee family's grip on Singapore remains unshaken. They are not just a family, they are the cornerstone of the nation's identity and governance. So why does the world refer to them as the Trillionaire family? Because their control is not about personal bank accounts or flashy displays of wealth. It's about something much bigger, control over one of the richest and most powerful nations on Earth. When you effectively control sovereign wealth funds worth over $1 trillion, own stakes in some of the biggest companies globally, and command one of the most stable economies in the world, your influence goes beyond billionaire status. The Lee family doesn't just live in Singapore. In many ways, they own the Singapore story. The Lees have already left a permanent mark on history. Lee Kuan Yew is remembered as one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century, and his son continues to lead a nation that is admired for its stability, cleanliness, and prosperity. But their legacy is not just political. It is financial, cultural, and global. The Lee family represents the idea that a small nation, if managed like a corporation, can become one of the wealthiest entities in the world. And as long as the Lees are at the helm, Singapore's future will continue to be shaped by their vision. The Lee family may not flaunt palaces, diamonds, or golden thrones, but their lifestyle is still insane. They represent a different kind of wealth, one that is tied not just to personal fortune, but to the control of a $1 trillion economy. They are proof that power doesn't always scream with luxury. Sometimes it whispers with influence. And in the case of Singapore, that influence has built one of the richest, most successful nations in the world. Inside the life of the Lee family, you don't just see billionaires. You see trillionaire rulers who have shaped an entire nation into a global empire of wealth and power. And that's the inside story of the Lee family, the trillionaire rulers behind Singapore's rise to global power and wealth. They may not flaunt their riches like royals or celebrities, but their influence is on a scale that few can even imagine. Which part of their lifestyle or power surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always the first to see our next exclusive look into the lives of the ultra-rich and powerful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.